The congregation, a very good morning and our heartfelt welcome to Bioanveshana 2024. Anveshana is derived from Sanskrit and means exploring the truth. Bioanveshana is therefore an all-encompassing effort towards exploring the secrets of biology in order to tame it ultimately into technology that is useful for mankind. The conference is hosted to celebrate the journey that started with the purpose of unveiling the truth of life and finally culminated in developing technologies to make lives worth living. To conflagrate the zeal for the search of truth, we have all gathered here to embark upon a scientific journey of exploring the frontiers in basic biology, biotechnology, and bioinformatics for 4 days.
Apart from being a leap year, this year is quite significant for us as we are celebrating 50 years of glorious journey of our university. And we are glad that Bioanveshana 2024 is a part of the Golden Jubilee celebrations.
We would like to call upon the dais Professor B.J. Rao, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, Dr. Nageshwar Reddy, Chairman, AIG Hospitals, Professor Martin Hegman, University of Rostock, Dr. Sisinthi Shivaji, Distinguished Scientist and Director Emeritus, LV Prasad Eye Institute, and Dr. Kensuke Ikinaka, Osaka University, to grace the inauguration ceremony, accompanied by Professor Anand Kumar Kondapi, Dean, School of Life Sciences, and Professor JSS Prakash, Head, Department of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics.
So let us start the event by lighting the lamp and illuminate ourselves with the light of knowledge. The lamp lighting will be accompanied with a melodious ode to the God of Wisdom, Sri Ganesh, and Goddess of Knowledge, Devi Saraswati, by our postgraduate students, Kriti and Pubali.
गणपतिं मनसा स्मरामि वसिष्ठवामदेवादिवन्दित महागणपतिं मनसा स्मरामि वसिष्ठवामदेवादिवन्दित महागणपतिं मनसा स्मरामि महादेवसुतं महादेवसुतं गुरुगुहनुतं महादेवसुतं गुरुगुहनुतं मारकोटिं प्रकाशं शान्तं मारकोटिं प्रकाशं शान्तं महाकाव्यनाटकाधिप्रियम् महाकाव्यनाटकाधिप्रियम् महाकाव्यनाटकाधिप्रियं मूषिकवाहनमोदकप्रियं महाकाव्यनाटकाधिप्रियं मूषिकवाहनमोदकप्रियं महागणपतिं मनसा स्मरामि वसिष्ठवामदेवादिवन्दित महागणपतिं मनसा स्मरामि
शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति श्वेतगन्धनुलेपना स्मितवदनं मुक्तदर्शना देवी सर्वे गुणेशना शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति शीतबन्धनुलेपना स्मितवदनं मुक्तदर्शना देवी सर्वे गुणेशना शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति श्वेतपद्मासना देवी सर्वविद्याप्रदायिनी कमललोचने विशालाक्षी वीणापुस्तकधारिणी श्वेतपद्मासना देवी सर्वविद्याप्रदायिनी कमललोचने विशालाक्षी वीणापुस्तकधारिणी शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति हृदमध्ये वसतु देवी वाङ्मे सा प्रतिष्ठितं हृदमध्ये वसतु देवी वाङ्मे सा प्रतिष्ठितं हृदमध्ये वसतु देवी वाङ्मे सा प्रतिष्ठितम् अर्चनं तव चरणकमले कृपयामि अभिवन्दनं शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति शीतवसना शुभ्रकान्ति
We would now like to request Professor JSS Prakash, Head, Department of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics, and the trailblazer of Bioinvation, to give the inaugural address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Respected Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, Professor B.J. Rao Garu, Padma Bhushan, Chairman of AAG Hospitals, Dr. Nageshwar Reddy Garu, eminent scientists from various research institutes from Bharat and also abroad, CEOs and directors of industries, especially biotech industries, faculty colleagues from School of Life Sciences and other schools, postdoctoral researchers, PhDs and master students of UoH and other students from other institutions. Good morning and a very warm welcome to Bioinvation 2024. Actually, we started Bioinvation in 2022 as in-house symposium to encourage the students to actively take part in scientific discussions. That was the main motto. We started in 2022 November. Then our Vice Chancellor B.J. Rao Garu liked the word Bioinvation, and I just want to tell you, if you to search in Google, it is an unknown word. And moreover, he rightly defined Bioinvation stating that Anveshana has no exact translation in English, but indicates exploring the truth. And the Anveshana is a Sanskrit word, it's there, and we clubbed or fused the bio at Anveshana, it's Bioinvation, and then he defined what is Bioinvation. So the definition of it is Bioinvation is the endeavor to search the secrets of biology and use it to develop technologies for betterment of mankind. This is what he defined it as earlier. Then with the success of Bioinvation, it was really a wonderful program last time. Though it was in-house symposium, we have very few speakers from outside the institute. Then it went on very well, and even students were they were not even moving at night from the post boards, and they were not coming for the dinner also. So we were really excited about it. And then we were motivated to level up Bioinvation 2024 to international conference and infuse the students with cutting-edge research at global scale. Professor Rao Garu is readily agreed, and is all the time very supportive and encouraging us. It's not only that in University of Hyderabad, almost every week there is a conference happening. He is really supportive, all the time encouraging different schools, and the programs are going on. It's a journey of more than 6 months hardship that we all have gathered here from different parts of the world to discuss science today and coming 4 days. We have eminent scientists from Bharat, Germany, Japan, Sweden, USA, Taiwan, and Australia. Medical researchers and experts and illustrious industrialists with us for 4 days to discuss about latest discoveries and inventions in basic biology, biotechnology, and bioinformatics. With the support and advices from our senior colleagues, Professor A.S. Raghavendra, Professor Appara Purule, Professor Prakash Babu Garu, and some other colleagues, we could manage to invite several international and national speakers. They are all very eminent researchers, and you see the program, you'll really enjoy discussing science with all these people. And we have total 46 plenary and invited talks. And also we have a distinguished lecture, 3 special lectures. Professor Rajesh Kokale, due to some other commitments, he could not come, but he will be delivering his inaugural special lecture online. And then we have also a distinguished lecture from Sir Professor Richard Roberts, We have among us directors and also from reputed institutes who, in spite of their busy schedule, they could make, because they are very busy with academic research and administrative tasks. You know that even I want to tell you, I'm just heading a small department. Really, it is becoming very hectic to manage things when it comes so many tasks we have to do. And still, they are really finding time for the science. That is very impressive and very important to all the students and people like us to know about it. And therefore, all the students, especially student participants, I request you, it's really a priceless opportunity for all of us, including you, of this conference to interact with them, all these speakers, and also we have oral and poster presentation, listen to their research contributions, especially observe the way they think science, this is. Interact with oral and poster presenters, exchange ideas. There's one thing I want to tell you, without thinking, there is no science. If you do some experiments because your supervisor asks you to do, and then there is no science in it, you will become a technician, you will no longer become a scientist. So thinking is very important, and then attending to this kind of conference is very, very important, because you'll know how others think and do the experiments, what is the idea behind it, the way they propose the hypothesis, and also I expect all of you to stick onto the chairs, don't go out of the auditorium, because it's not easy to organize this kind of conferences. Try to understand this for all of us. Importantly, there are so many speakers, as I told you before, and actively participate in the conference and learn more and update yourself with all the 7 themes of the sub-themes of the conference. Importantly, I want to just tell you, you don't have to be outstanding student. Okay, you better to be in-sitting listener of science. Okay, I hope you understand what I mean. I expect to see all of you actively interacting with the speakers. And also, I'm actually glad to share that we have some of our alumni. Dr. Suresh Chintalapati is one of the first batch students from Department of Biotechnology. Now he is CEO of MapGenix. Okay, and also we have Dr. Tharani Ghosh, he's also from the department, and we have Gopalji Jha, is in the airport, he's arriving now. And then they're all now once upon in scientists or company CEOs like that, and before they were all also sitting in the same classrooms as students. The point what I'm trying to make here is that you all will be, most of you will be the future scientists of Bharat. So, focus and be attentive and discuss science, and not only just classroom fundamental, what you call teaching classes, attending to this kind of conferences is very important. And now I sincerely thank all the special plenary and invited speakers from Bharat and abroad for readily accepting our invitation to share the research findings, especially for the benefit of inculcating scientific temper in researchers. See, tomorrow we have a Nobel laureate distinguished lecture. He personally told me that, Prakash, I'm making my talk in such a way that it's for your students, not for you. I'm making the talk. You know what it is? He wants to show the path to Nobel Prize. Don't stop dreaming, as Professor Abdul Kalam, late Abdul Kalam, Sri Abdul Kalam said. So, with this, I welcome you all to this wonderful, I hope a fruitful conference, Bioanveshana, and I thank you once again. Please be active and participate. Thank you very much, all of you.
We are highly obliged for your constant effort to motivate us to think science, and we are privileged to have you as our guide. Thank you, Professor Prakash, for enlightening us with the global research through this grand scientific assemblage. Clearly, you are doing justice to your name, Prakash, which means light. We would now request Professor Anand Kumar Kontapi, Dean, School of Life Sciences, to address the Assembly.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Bijay Rao Garu, Padma Bhushan, Dr. Nageswara Reddy Garu, and Professor Shivaji, and other esteemed guests on the dais, and also the invitees to this conference, and our colleagues. The faculty members of School of Life Science and other schools, and students. The School of Life Science welcome all of you to this meeting, and just to give a brief overview of School of Life Science. We have 5 departments: Department of Biochemistry, Plant Sciences, and Animal Biology, Biotechnology, Bioinformatics, and Systems and Computational Biology. These are the 5 departments, and offers master's programs and also PhD programs in respect to disciplines. In addition to that, we also have a lot of postdoctoral students working in different labs, coming from different areas, even from rural background, and getting into the mainstream research. So in addition to that, we have a skill development center. Currently Professor Suresh is heading the center, and he is doing very active role in terms of training the young minds coming from different colleges, different universities on various techniques, very special techniques that are not available in different places. Incidentally, today there is an overlap at 2:30. He is also organizing one program for the students coming from rural areas, special program. So likewise, we're trying to do the skill orientation and skill development among various students, not only from our university, also from different places. In addition to that, School of Life Science has very strong central facilities where every student can able to do what kind of research they want. In addition, the School of Life Science also hosting the incubation centers, and then try to provide the facilities for the translation of various works, not only from the school, also from all over India. So that's how the school is very dynamic, and our faculty are very dynamic and publishing very impact journals. And our focused area of school is the cancer biology, infectious diseases, and then the genomics, proteomics, and also the plant biotechnology, and various other basic sciences of structural biology and all that. So this is a strong background of our faculty, and the respective teams they are heading, and then bringing up various recognitions from different. And the Bioinnovation is one of such program where they're trying to bring all PhD, bachelor, master students together to orient toward the current research and update them. Similarly, other departments also, they have different programs where bring their students, master students and PhD students. So trying to see that the students can able to present their work in form of poster or oral in it, and interact with the various experts coming to the conference, so that they have first-hand interaction and then understanding about what they are doing right and what else they can do, they can understand. So that is how I welcome you again, and I appreciate JSS Prakash for taking all the pain in organizing this event at international level, involving all DBT programs within India. And we thank IoE for funding, and this is one of the important thing is that this is an event to mark the Golden Jubilee of the celebrations of University of Hyderabad, and I thank everyone for attending this meeting.
Thank you, sir, for all your support, advice, and encouragement. You are bearing the torch of the department since its inception and have always been a visionary in making the department progress. Now, we would like to request Professor Prakash, Coordinator of Bioanveshana, to begin the inaugural events of the conference.
So we would now begin the conference with an inaugural address, followed by a special lecture from our Vice Chancellor B.J. Rao garu. Professor B.J. Rao needs no introduction. Is one of the adored professors. He is an admirable personality and the gift of the gap that makes his talks thought-provocative. Has made fundamental contributions in the areas of genome biology and cellular regulations and adaptations. Professor Rao served in TIFR Mumbai for 24 years and moved to ISER Tirupati as professor and chair of biology. He then took over the charge of Vice Chancellor of our University of Hyderabad in 2022. Professor Rao is a fellow of all the 3 national academies of India and Sir J.C. Bose awardee from DST. He is student-friendly and always encourages the students to focus on the quality of research rather than the quantity of experiments performed. That's the most important point. In spite of his hectic schedule, he has been instrumental in guiding Team Bioanveshana, and it is his unwavering patronage that we all have reached this stage. Now I would invite Professor B.J. Rao to grace the stage with his inaugural address, followed by special inaugural lecture, and I request you, sir, also chair the inaugural session. Please. Yeah.
Load chesara.
A pointer.
No, I need this.
This is what
Good morning to all of you. Firstly, I want to welcome all my guests from within India as well as outside India for this Bioanveshana. Bioanveshana is a very beautiful word. It's a well-chosen word. We are meeting here to celebrate Golden Jubilee year of University of Hyderabad. We are going to complete 50 years by the end of 2024. I want all of you to applaud University of Hyderabad, please. I also want to thank Institute of Eminence for facilitating some of these very important events. We are now sitting in one of the best schools of the university. We have very bright students who are all there. It's a very beautiful campus, large campus, and a happening campus. Almost every day we are celebrating academics, because academics and research, thinking, scholarship is the forte here. So welcome all of you. I see a lot of prominent people here from academia as well as from industry. Nageshwar Reddy Gar is there. And just to take a sample example, Martin Hagman is here. I am familiar with his with the fundamental contribution that he has made in carbon fixation in cyanobacteria. Anil Tripathi is there. My friend Majumdar is there. So a lot of good people here. I'm so happy to be welcoming all of you.
And also I think Rajesh Gokhale may join. He's online. So he's going to join us from Delhi online and going to give us interesting insights about DBT. I'm going to give a small talk, and my talk is primarily focused on a theme that is student-centric. So non-students can switch off, but we are all students also. So the topic I chose is a very general topic and very close to my heart. It's not a research-centric topic. It's a topic that is worth asking and worth learning about. So I chose this topic. It's a conceptual topic. Each of us may have our own takes on this, but this is my take. Topic is, how does chemistry become biology? Obviously, the title says it all. Chemistry obviously starts with physics, and we are all physical systems. And this physical system is a very unique system. It's a unique system because we are not an isolated system where the system doesn't exchange anything from surrounding. That's completely isolated. We are not. We are also not closed system. That means only energy gets exchanged, material exchange doesn't happen. We are not a closed system. We are completely open system. We have to be completely open to the surroundings. What does it mean by completely open? We exchange matter, energy with our surroundings. If we become negative entropy system, which we become during development, we disorder our surroundings compensatorily. So we are completely open. When we become negatively entropic, we create a lot of entropy in the systems surrounding us. We are completely open. This is very important for students to realize that whatever we do within ourselves, sort of reverse happens outside. This is the fundamental paradigm. And then energy is very important for us because inherently living cells are unstable. Inherently, that's the design. The instability is removed and things become stable by constant flow of energy, which prevents them from becoming disorganized. Energy is required all the time. Cells obtain energy mainly by oxidation of biomolecules, where electrons are transferred from one molecule to another, and in doing so they release free energy. This energy is captured by cells, used to maintain highly organized cellular and tissue structures and functions. Therefore, energy homeostasis forms a central part of our metabolism and therefore our survival. This is all for students. Now, energy is important because it can be coupled. This is, I think, the most beautiful thing that biology does it. The free energy of ATP hydrolysis, which is negative, minus 7.3, is coupled into doing chemistry. Example, glucose is phosphorylated by hexokinase to glucose 6-phosphate, which is energy requiring process, which is obtained by ATP hydrolysis. So minus 7.3 plus 4, we are still excess in terms of minus 3.3 kilocal per mole. Very useful coupling reaction. We have done our work, but we still have currency left. Cell is full of such coupling reactions. It's so important. ATP as a currency is a usable currency because it is intimately coupled to enzymes which harness this energy. We fully don't understand how this energy is harnessed. How well it is coupled, these details we still don't know. Now, in biology, many reactions are non-linear reactions. This is a very, very important take-home for all biological systems. What do I mean by non-linearity? This, I think, is very close to my heart. In fact, the entire thing is summed up here, the entire biology. If we take ourselves as a black box, input A gives rise to output X. Let's assume that. And if in these black boxes two inputs come, A comes, X is output, B comes, Y is output. One input, one output. But in this black box, when input A and input B come together, this output Z is never equal to X plus Y. Your X plus Y may be different from my X plus Y, may be different from his X plus Y. Therefore, phenotypically, we are all different. How different systems generate different outputs for the same given inputs is the mystery in biology. Therefore, things have to happen non-linearly. This Z can be much larger than X plus Y, or can even be much smaller as the tuning requires. So the entire biology is to understand how X plus Y is not equal to Z. I think students must pay attention to this. Chemistry of living world. This is so beautiful. Why? Because in this world, Earth for example, there are so many elements. There are so many more which I have skipped. But there are only few elements which are very, very privileged in biology. Very, very few. Carbon is the most privileged. Then of course hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. Carbon is the most privileged. We are all carbon world. Why? This is a very important question that students must ask. Silicon also is very abundant in our world, but silicon is not the element of life. How did nature choose this? Who chose it? How did this come about? Is a very important fundamental question when you want to think about chemistry becoming biology. We became biology only because of carbon. Carbon has 4 bonds. It can make 4 bonds. 4 is a good number. 1 will be unsuccessful event. Any element which has only 1 valency cannot do much. 2 is also limiting. 3 gets better. 4 is certainly much better. 5, 6, 7 become more complicated. 4 is a sweet spot. Why is it a sweet spot will become clearer. The most important property of carbon is carbon, nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen. These are the 4 types of bonds which are available in biology, have more or less same energy levels. That means carbon in its cycle, chemistry cycle, will not get trapped into one particular bond. It can permeate itself into CC, CO, CH, CN, etc. rather easily, because these are all of the same energy levels. Otherwise, the most energetic bond will trap all the atoms. Silicon gets trapped as silicate because silicon oxygen bond energy is a lot more than others. So this is a very important chemical mystery that keeps carbon the winner. Now, this is what it is. So CC is 347, CO is 358, almost similar. SI is 340, SiO is 452, large difference. So most of the silicon eventually go into silicates, the rocks. Not good for biology. In biology, atoms have to have multiple ways of linking with other atoms. Energetics for carbon facilitates that. So catenation becomes so beautiful in living world. No other atom has this power of catenation. In fact, if other atoms become catenated, nitrogen or oxygen, they are actually dangerous chemicals. All of you know that. They are even explosives. So in terms of safety, in terms of pliability, carbon-carbon catenation is the only catenation that has this important chemical property of making very, very beautiful molecules. For example, look at this beauty of carbon. You have octane, you have ethylbenzene, ethanol, octane, multiple forms of carbon catenations. So life is so much more versatile with carbon than with any other atom. This, I think, is the most beautiful success stories of biology via chemistry. And you see all these beautiful functional groups through which biology actually emerges. There are no such functional groups if you omit carbon in chemistry. Ultimately, biology emerges because these interesting monomers polymerize, and functional structures are generated. Nucleotides are formed, very beautiful functional entities from where nucleic acids are generated. From nucleic acids, chromosomes are generated. Amino acids generate interesting peptides, proteins, and from proteins superstructures are generated. Fatty acids assemble into beautiful lipids and lipid membranes are generated. You can see this is the genesis of biology from very interesting monomers which we generally do not pay attention to. But we must pay attention to these because exquisite chemistry in these monomers generates exquisite polymers which assemble into functionally relevant organelles, which is where biology starts kicking in. This my students must pay attention to. I will repeat it. Now, biology loves chirality. All of us are chiral structures. And the chirality is there everywhere to see. If you watch careful in biology, there is so much of chirality. And this chirality happens because there is what is called remarkable chiral selectivity. All of us have taken L amino acids, very rarely D amino acids. Alpha helix has a particular right-handed symmetry. All these are very important decisions that natural selection has made because of chirality. If alpha helix were left-handed, its properties are different, significantly different. So chirality brings in enormous functional selectivity via chiral selectivity in the prebiotic soup. It's not very clear how in the prebiotic synthesis chiral selectivity happened by symmetry breaking processes. What is the mechanism of symmetry breaking is a very important question that we still do not understand. Many processes like essential molecules are chiral. This is all you know all this, but we have to pay attention to these. L enantiomer, R enantiomer, these are very important. And the best example we studied in school is that there are two enantiomers, R and S enantiomer. One is a good molecule which has very important analgesic properties. Another enantiomer of the same molecule is a teratogen. Simply the chirality effect. Chemistry is identical otherwise. And this leads into bad molecule leads into lot of defects. Good molecule leads into useful effects. This is the importance of chirality in biology as an example. Now, so I belabored this point earlier. You can see the level of repertoire. No other element other than carbon can do it. How does chemistry really turn into biology? Now with that background, are there some good convincing examples? I would take one example of DNA replication. DNA replication is a very, very accurate process. 10 to the power -6, -7, -8 error rates. That means one error in 10 to the power of 6 events, or one error in 10 to the power of 7 or 8 events. Very large number of events, only one error. This is an exquisite signal to noise ratio. No human machine can do it. How does this happen? If you want to achieve this level of selectivity, the level of delta G for wrong versus right event must be very high, which biology doesn't facilitate. To make one error out of 10 to the power of 8, your delta G difference should be so significant, only then this can happen. But this is solved by having a lot of interesting chemistry. This, I think, is the most important example to understand how chemistry becomes biology. Organisms typically tolerate one error in 10 to the power of 9 base pair, just as an example. Hence, the fidelity of replication is very high, required for survival. Now, who does this? The hero of this, or the heroine of this process, is DNA polymerase. Exquisitely studied molecule. And the molecule is this. It's like a pump, heart, constantly pumping, closing, opening, closing. Molecule is really functioning like this. So why is it doing this? It is doing this as a part of selectivity of the nucleotide. Because when replication happens, it has to follow Watson-Crick rule. If there is a G in the template strand, only C has to come. If there is A in the template strand, only T has to come. That means the other nucleotides must not be accepted there. And that happens because when the polymerase closes, if wrong nucleotide comes, it cannot close well. That's the selectivity. Sterically, something bothers the enzyme, and therefore the enzyme does not accept the wrong nucleotide. It's a very dynamic molecule. So the dynamics of opening closing is a very important part of selectivity at the polymerase level. There are multiple other steps. Conformational change in clino following ternary complex formation, and the polymerase discriminates the correct nucleotide from incorrect nucleotide by multiple steps. Importance of multiple steps become clear when I go further. By a difference in affinity. Right nucleotide has better affinity than wrong nucleotide. One discrimination. Second discrimination is rate determining conformational change happens only when the right nucleotide comes in. Third, in case a wrong nucleotide has come in, the next nucleotide addition is slow. Next nucleotide addition in front of the wrong nucleotide is slow. Third discrimination. This is all chemistry here. People have measured this chemistry. And increased partitioning to the exonuclease side where proofreading happens in case incorrect nucleotide is incorporated chemically. One more step to discriminate. Slower rate of incorporation of the base in case a mismatch is generated. The point I'm trying to make is to achieve 10 to the power of 9 discrimination, multiple chemical steps come in. At each chemical step, the discrimination is about 10 to the power of minus 2, which chemistry can easily do. If you now integrate all these steps, multiple steps, 5 steps for example, 10 to the power of minus 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2, these multiply because probability, final probability is by multiplication, and then chemistry becomes 10 to the power of minus 8, minus 9, which is how biology manifests itself. So that means concerted coupling of chemical reactions makes biology what it is. This is the best example I can give you. Each step has been chemically analyzed with exquisite mechanisms. So this, I think, is a good example of how chemistry can be tweaked into concerted regulation to ultimately generate a biological process which is exquisitely complex, but at the same time very, very accurate. So arranging chemistry in a manner that is functionally relevant is biology. So there are other examples also. Take translation for example. Translations has multiple steps, very beautifully coupled. Precursor tRNA is processed and amino acylated. Amino acylated is activated by elongation factor, which itself is activated by GTP, comes at the entry site, and then peptidyl site, empty tRNA is knocked out, and this one moves there. Several dozens of chemical reactions happen in synchrony. Each step is a chemistry step. Each step. All these put together in synchrony is biology, which we talk about translation. This is another very good example where at each step chemistry has been extremely well worked out. And protein translation also is a very accurate process. Amino acylation happens at the accuracy of 10 to the power of minus 11. Cognate tRNA has to be acylated by the right amino acid, otherwise we don't live here. So that happens because of concerted reaction. Look at this beautiful example. Same enzyme becomes ATP synthase in one case, ATPase in the other case. Same enzyme. It's a motor. It's a rotary motor. How does it hydrolyze ATP in one case and synthesize ATP in the other case? Same enzyme. It is simply because this enzyme is sensing which way the protons are going out. If the protons come from cellular space to extracellular space, this motor goes in one direction and it becomes ATPase. If the proton direction is reversed from exoplasmic state to cytoplasmic state, if it goes bottom to up, same enzyme synthesizes ATP. From ADP it synthesizes ATP. So exquisitely the proton direction can decide whether the rotor can turn clockwise or anti-clockwise. As simple as that. And people have shown this beautifully in vitro by arranging proton flow direction. And ATP hydrolysis versus ATP synthase, these are two different biological systems in the cells by the same enzyme, simply regulated by proton flow. And proton flow is regulated by many other biochemical reactions. This is another very beautiful example of how chemistry can be demystified to make it look like a biology. You can see that all this is real basic biochemistry I am directing towards the students, but I want them to pay attention to some of these, because that's when real biology can be appreciated. Even though biology arises from physics and chemistry, finally when we look like human beings and organisms, we don't look like chemistry at all. When I see all of you, you are not just a bunch of chemical reactions. You are products of evolution. So when evolution comes in, then it's a different avatar altogether. It takes a different form which is beyond physics and chemistry. I'll give some examples. Biological systems are modular. Different modules rearranged differently, giving rise to multiple patterns. So now evolution comes in, and evolution does interesting changes. In this case, an example of chromosome crossing overs. Just my example, there are other examples. What is the consequence of these chromosome crossing overs during evolutionary time scales? The profound consequence is genome in humans can be rearranged into some other patterns, and that becomes a different animal. Same genome or very similar looking genome rearranged differently. You can go by color code here. Chromosome 5 here is rearranged into different parts of chromosomes in this organism. So this is essentially now evolution, where evolution tries random events and a particular configuration is selected as mouse animal. Just giving one sort of an extreme example, very simplified example. There are many other examples which I could have given, but this is one example that becomes very obvious when you look at it. There are many, many dynamic states. Biology is one such. Solar system is dynamic. Atmosphere is dynamic. Economy is dynamic. Human body is extremely dynamic. Ecology is dynamic. Cancer growth is dynamic. Spread of epidemics is dynamic. Chemical reactions are extremely dynamic. All these are examples of dynamic systems which is worked upon by evolution. And then many things are chosen. Cancer is a Darwinian model. Interesting things happen here. This is the genome or gene which is constantly replicating, and this, while it is getting replicated, also is interacting with environment, and phenotypes get generated, and these phenotypes get selected, and because of the phenotypic selections we are all different, although our genomes are nearly identical. So we are constantly under selection via our interaction with the environment, and this is essentially a Darwinian selection process which tweaks chemistry in a manner that all of us would look very different at the end of the day. So this, I think, I want to summarize in this slide, and this is the last slide. So the main take home of this slide is very stunning. All these collection of human beings are nearly identical in terms of genotypes, 99.9% similar. But because of the Darwinian selection, phenotypic selections, we all become 99.9% dissimilar in our phenotypes. From nearly identical genotype, we become nearly non-identical phenotypes. This, I think, is the most beautiful mystery in biology, and this happens because of phenotypic selections via transcriptomes, proteomes, metabolome, and whatnot. So chemistry makes us identical in the genotypes, but biology takes over via evolution and selection, and we become very different. So we are all very different. This person would never have born in the past, like him, would never be born in future, phenotypically. It is that level of uniqueness that we will enjoy at the end of the day because of phenotypic selection, which is mostly Darwinian. So I think this is what I just wanted to share. One last take-home sentence or take-home text. We are all self-organized systems, but we are a critical system. I will just read out this. Complex behavior in nature reflects the tendency of large systems such as us with many components to evolve into a poised, we are all poised, but critical state. Way out of balance. We are not reactions with equilibrium, at equilibrium. We are out of equilibrium systems. Way out of balance where minor disturbances may lead to events. That is what is called chaotic state. Called avalanches of all sizes. Most of the changes take place through catastrophic events. We are ready to face catastrophe in biology anytime. These catastrophic events are rather than by following a smooth gradual path. There is nothing very smooth in biology. Many things can go wrong at any time point. Our esteemed clinicians know it very well, because finally you will encounter a person who is simply drop dead, healthy looking person. That happens in biology because we are very critically poised, out of equilibrium, and in what is called chaotic state. That is so for any self-organized system. Nothing very particular about biology alone. Atmosphere can suddenly change. Human physiology can suddenly change. The evolution to this very delicate state occurs without design from any outside agent. Without any outside agent. This state is established solely because of the dynamic interactions among individual elements of the system. The critical state is self-organized. Self-organized criticality is so far the only known general mechanism to generate complexity, which is us. This is the present level of understanding that physicists who look at self-organized systems talk about in biology. So finally, I want to thank all of you for taking your very valuable time. But I think it was work for students where I made some important points for them to go home and ponder about it. Thank you very much. Namaste. I don't think we have time for discussion, right? No. So we'll proceed further. Yeah. I would request Prakash Garu to invite Rajesh Gokhale. So Rajesh Gokhale ji, are you on? Okay. The next speaker, we are running late. The next speaker is Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Secretary DBT, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. Rajesh Gokhale has been a very accomplished biologist in the area of Mycobacterium tuberculosis pathology mechanism. He was director of CSIR and DBT institutes. He was the director of IGIB as well as NII. He has published very influential papers in Mycobacterium tuberculosis metabolic regulations. He is now holding the position of Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. I would request Rajesh Gokhale to deliver his address by online mode, and it will be extremely useful, rewarding for us to be listening to his lecture. Thank you very much. Rajesh, you are on.
Take one of those.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you, Vakala. So should I share my slides? Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's in the full screen mode, right? It's changing. Okay. So let me know, should I start now actually, because I'm not able to see.
Rajesh, we are able to hear you, we are able to see you. Please proceed.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Good morning and namaskar to all of you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Professor Rao and Professor Prakash. I think it would have been a pleasure if I was there and had chance to interact with all the community as well. But I think there are various other factors that kind of provide me to come online. What I'm going to talk to you today is actually what really I believe is how biology will build the next technology revolution, and therefore, how this could be the future growth catalyst for Viksit Bharat. What our Honorable Prime Minister's vision is to create India a developed country by 2047, which is 100 years of India. So how do we really, where is the challenge right now? If you really try, and I put this first slide to understand how India compares with all of the other countries in terms of their economic growth. This is just one parameter, but it also gives you an opportunity to understand how different other countries also are progressing. There's a rather interesting concept given by World Bank, actually, which is called a middle income trap. What this really means is that many promising economies have become ensnared in middle income mediocrity, actually. You can see this basically graph gives you about low income trap to a low income, high income, and then becoming rich and staying rich, actually. And you can see a very large number of countries that have been doing fairly well in terms of their GDP and their other activities and infrastructure are still kind of get trapped in this middle income challenge, which is basically saying that a question that is raised is that why developing country like India, which has a very fast growing economy, have found it difficult to eventually break into the ranks of rich nations, actually. And you can see the examples: Russia, Mexico, South Africa, Brazil, right here. India is somewhere in still LMIC country. Now, how do we really transit from this phase of middle income to either becoming rich or staying rich, actually, and what is it really required to do? So we believe in the government very strongly that technologically empowered India can escape this trap. And what that means is really we need to be, for this large number of people, population, really need to make sure that the technology becomes a center stage of every activity that we do. And the second and the other most important point is that the trajectory that we have followed from coming out from the low income to the middle income is not necessarily the same trajectory we can utilize to continue to go into the staying rich challenge, actually. So every quadrant requires, if you want to leapfrog, you have to have a different trajectory. And what that means is that we need to change into our systems, our mechanisms, our ability to exist and our ability to interact and collaborate and carry out much larger programs and activities that are very important for the country's perspective. So how do we really do this, actually? And one of the aspects that we believe and is very, very is the strong biotech growth will actually determine how stronger the bioeconomy would actually become, and would therefore be one of the major player in terms of how it will perform in the future to come. So if you look at bioeconomy, it's actually doing really well right now in our country. Last year, the growth was astounding 29% of the growth, and which is really unprecedented, obviously due to several acquisitions that have happened in the healthcare sector. It's presently valued about $140 billion, which is about 4% of the total GDP of the economy of the country, and which is about $3.5 billion industry actually. And what we believe is that this bioeconomy is likely to be about $300 billion by 2030, and has to be about more than $3+ trillion in 2047 if India wants to appear as a Viksit Bharat country. So how do we really understand this? Where are the various trajectories and which are the areas that are actually sectorial growths that are happening in the country? So the last year, the growth was very, very high in bio-industrial area. Actually, 43% contributes from the bio-industrial part of it. 7% from the bio-IT services, 36% from biopharma, 8% bio-agri, and the COVID bioeconomy is still strong due to various aspects of activities happening. So we really believe that bioeconomy and therefore the biotech innovation ecosystem has to really grow up to withstand the challenges of our future of the country's progress in next 25 years to come. And therefore what Department of Biotechnology has been doing over the years, and in fact we are now taking it further ahead actually, is to drive innovations and bioeconomy through what we call intelligent networking actually. And I think that's become the most critical component, that how you can bring different pieces together and connect them in a way such that they actually become better than each other's actually. So the systems become better than this. And I think the part that I've been wanting to convey to everybody, that this is not just a funding agency, but it's actually an agency that did I lose my slides?
We are seeing your slide.
Okay. So therefore, I will just have to reload it. I lost it on my computer for some reason. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So various aspects that we really need to do is to look at the technology, look at the innovation, focus on startups, develop various financial models, look at the infrastructure, how the social impact it will have, can you bring in inclusivity? And the most important component that is emerging right now in this present systems is the sustainability actually. Can we therefore think about all these paradigms and put them together in a way such that it actually makes it an important focus for our country's future perspective? Now, what has been DBT doing actually? And as I said, it's not that you can start anything just away. In fact, Department of Biotechnology is India is one of the unusual countries where Department of Biotechnology has been given such a prominence since 1986. It has been set up actually, and that's why I've given this title called Harmonizing Connections and Fostering Meaningful Networks. So how has DBT been doing this? And I'll give you a little bit of perspective on this actually. So one of the component of human resource development has been its partnership with Wellcome Trust, which is an India alliance actually. And the whole idea here is to create the best science through best resources and do it all across the country to advance the discovery and innovation and improve health. So this has been a very, very, as many of you are already fellows of this and you would be aware of it actually, that this has been a very, very strong model for how fundings across the institutions and across different places can happen. And in fact, I'm happy to say that Wellcome Trust has in principle agreed to have a next 5 years of extension done with £50 million invested into this program again actually. So hopefully we'll continue this, become bigger and better. The second aspect has been the BIRAC, and this has been again a very unusual organization that was set up in 2012. And the perspective of this too actually is the ecosystem to bring the industrial development and entrepreneurship actually. And if you imagine the time when the BIRAC was initiated in around 2014 actually kind of time, the total number of biotech startups in this country was just about 70 to 100 actually. And now we have about 7,000 biotech startups actually, with about 75 incubators managed by this BIRAC and about 4,000 companies directly incubated, directly, indirectly associated with BIRAC's activity. So this has been one of the two critical components. What we are now doing is, in fact, we've already now set up what we call Biotechnology Research Innovation Council. Now, this is about networking all the DBT research institutes to enhance and implement the transformative power of SNT for the benefit of all, actually. And I'll just show you why it is so important to set up these new organizational structures, which we call BRIC, actually. And finally, what we are also going to set up is what we call bioenablers, Mulankur bioenablers, which Mulankur is a word that's for the taproot, the shoot that comes out from the taproot, actually. And the idea is really how to catalyze green growth and bioeconomy with public-private partnerships by setting up biomanufacturing hubs and bio-AI hubs that will drive the ecosystem around the biotech economy systems, actually. As I said, why do we need to change the perspective of our institutions, actually? So if you really try and understand, and many institutions across country, in fact, all institutions across country, the genesis have been three major aspects, actually. One is the pursuit of knowledge, creating infrastructure, and capacity building. And I think we have done as a country incredibly well, because, you can see wealth of human resource that have been created to be able to do these activities. However, in the rapidly evolving landscape of 21st century, the science, technology, and innovation now, people are talking about STI to be the critical driver of societal progress. And I think it's a little bit harder to understand how given paradigms will be able to translate into the societal progress and be the catalyst of change and development. And that's where I think we need to set up new kind of framework that allows us to do these kind of activities as well. So how do we really do this? And I'll try to give you some perspective of how Department of Biotechnology is taking steps. One, by amalgamating its all organizations such that critically one can have critical strength, which is of all the scientists and students working together in a certain way, and that can become an effective model system to look at. So as I said, this is the mechanism cycle that we think is the most critical for us to foster bioinnovations and promote bioeconomy. And one of the aspects that we have already doing is actually strengthening and aligning science and technology innovation ecosystem, as you can see. And there are lots of fragmented efforts, there are lots of wonderful things going in and around in various parts of the country, actually. What we really need to do is to align these such that the effective value can actually be, in fact, be created, actually. The second is we need to provide compelling incentives for harnessing frontier technologies to the industries, actually. So we need to come up with policies that are actually incentivizes industries to take up to these new platforms that we are all evolving and developing through the biotech ecosystem. The third is the workforce transitions and capacity building. I believe that this is the most critical component because the human resource determines what all you can deliver. And I think we really need to change the paradigms of both PhDs and postdoctoral fellows, in fact, as the NEP is looking into a big picture game as well. The fourth component is the regulatory reforms, and institutions and instruments have to synchronize because, as I will show you one of the examples that Indian government did it very, very judiciously, actually, aspect of it. And finally, the critical component in the biotech system is the social protection, actually, is very important. We need to have inclusive debate to understand how biotechnology doesn't necessarily mean playing around with the nature's perspective, but in fact, it's just a mechanism to drive better and faster evolutionary processes that are actually otherwise will take its own time. And a classical example, many of you may be aware of GM mustard, that challenge that we're looking at actually right now. And I think obviously the R&D budget does become the central component, and all of these have to be aligned to be able to make sure that the innovation to technology actually happens in a right way. So what we have been doing actually, and I think one of the departments of biotechnology since last couple of years, we are trying to come up with one reforms after another such that we bring value to the systems actually. So one of the key decisions that was taken about a year and a half back was to allow genome editing in plants as a variety release actually. And you can, I don't know how many of you know, European Union Parliament yesterday only passed the bill that they would also permit doing this actually. Now if you really look at and if you communicate to the people, transposon mediated genomic transversion or modifications is a very common process in plants. And what SDNN1, SDN Technologies does is in fact allows you to do this in a precision way rather than a random way, and then get out of any extraneous DNA that is present in it actually. So therefore, what we are trying to do is to actually convince government that these are technological interventions that are fairly safe and needs to be exempted. And we are delighted that, government has agreed to this proposal actually, and now the genome editing crops you'll start to see in about a couple of years' time actually with variety of various important properties to look at. Secondly is the IP licensing actually, and in a biotech sector where there is a large incubation period for the mechanism to technology emergence actually, you need to have a mechanism such that you can have some exclusive licensing actually. Now it is very important because non-exclusive licensing does not give any kind of benefit or advantage to an industrial partner. And therefore, we have come up with an IP policy and given this rights within the institutions to make a decision such that non-exclusive and exclusive licensing both can be balanced out. And at the same time, doing IP assessments reforms as well, actually. The other component is a BioWrap, actually. I think we have developed a single regulatory portal from where you can get a single BioWrap ID and you can then go across various regulatory bodies to get your work done. I believe very strongly that the PhD needs to undergo a tremendous amount of reforms from what we are doing right now, because I'll tell you a little bit later part of the time what we are trying to do in the Department of Biotechnology. And finally, there needs to be a parity in terms of, there is a misbalance in terms of how the retirement age of the superannuation age for institutions in science and technology ministry, because many retire even with less than 25 years of service actually, and it is not really correct for the systems to really take it and build it further. So what are we doing from the department? And just give you some perspective that I've just given a process now. What are the programs that we are handling actually? And I think one of our major mission program has been National Biopharma Mission, which is actually a program that has led to about 15 vaccine candidates, 21 biosimilar products, and 29 medical devices and diagnostics actually. In fact, one of the first MRI scanner to receive commercial scale and manufacturing license Cedesco came through this, and also liraglutide, which is a biosimilar, was first completed the phase 3 clinical trial and got approval. So many vaccines, in fact, you can see COVID vaccines that came up. In fact, all the clinical trial sites were set up in National Biopharma Mission, and through Mission COVID Suraksha, Department of Biotechnology was able to set up various platforms. Maybe it's a DNA platform or a protein subunit platform or a chimpanzee adenoviral intranasal vaccine, or you can see mRNA platforms actually. So all of these have got set up in the country in last 1.5 to 2 years. And I think this is a very good boost to the country's progress, where now new technologies are emerging and one can find solutions for problems that have been stuck for several years actually. So it's a kind of transformative for the country in terms of vaccine research now. Another example, some of you might have heard in the budget announcement as well, that government is going to start with the vaccination for human papilloma virus vaccination vaccine for the girls from 9th standard to 12th standard actually. And again, this vaccine, a quadrivalent vaccine, was done by DBT BIRAC along with Serum Research Institute actually, and one launched by Honorable Minister, you can see 2022. So you can see tremendous amount of success stories, in fact, are coming from Department of Biotechnology's initiative over the years, and we're trying to progress ahead and look at it. For example, we will now very soon announce the completion of the Genome India program. Now, this is a program that will catalog the genetic variations of representative of populations across the country. About 10,000 individuals representing various linguistic and social groups across the country have been cataloged. The SNPs will identify various low frequency, rare SNPs and structural reforms in terms of what we'll be able to. So the reference genome should provide us a perspective to do large number of important and interesting studies in the context of prevention and precision medicine. And hopefully this will be transformative and provide solutions to large number of other problems to come at. Two other programs which we call data-driven research to health innovations. INSACOG, many of you must be aware of it. Actually, during the COVID times, Greater than 3 lakh sequences have been put together in a system. Similarly, we are trying to do this for tuberculosis as well. Our whole idea really is to genome sequence about 30,000 genomes of mycobacterium tuberculosis, such that the drug resistance patterns are identified through the genome sequencing in the future, rather than doing the slow microbiological route, where it requires 3 weeks for people to identify where TB has any drug resistance patterns or not. Also, to be able to look at data and analysis of data, Department of Biotechnology has set up what we call Indian Biological Data Center, where the National Repository for Life Sciences data has been kept. And I very strongly urge all of you, all the studies that you do, please open your own access ID in IBDC and submit the data here before you submit it to NCBI and other sources, such that this becomes a repository of primary data of life sciences in the country. So the whole idea really is to bring people together and with cooperation and collaboration, make innovations and make it in the bigger place actually. So how do we really challenge ourselves with new programs and ideas to foster a future which is more sustainable, innovative and responsive, has the potential to create new jobs and intensify entrepreneurial momentum, such that Bharat can be the global leader in the next industrial revolution actually. And therefore, what we're trying to put together is what we call a biovision for Viksit Bharat actually. And you can see there are a large number of sectors where we need to actually work together in a collaborative mode, whether it's biopharma, bioagri, bioindustrial, bioenergy, bioservices, biomedtech, bioAI. And one of the key principles that we're going to do is rather than from the today's consumptive manufacturing paradigm, we're trying to transform to the one based on the regenerative principles actually. And many of you must be aware of this clearly, that the global threats require concerted, sustainable interventions. And therefore, all the problems that are associated in the world can in fact be addressed the best using bioeconomic models, so that the forest, glaciers problem, biodiversity decline can in fact be taken care of. And obviously, one of the key focus would be to have a biomaterial which is recyclable, such that large number of structures and various other industries will revolve around it actually. You can see one of the material that will undergo transformation again is the cloth industry actually. You can see, for example, the sari mess, where Char Dham pilgrims discarded about 7 quintals in less than 2 months in the rivers now. If you look at, cloth is no longer only an essential industry, it's now also become a kind of a commercial industry. And one of the challenge with the cloth is that if you have 1.4 billion people having 50 pieces of cloth, there is no end of life cycle for the cloth industry actually. So we really need to change these paradigms such that we can actually bring in more sustainable interventions actually. Plastic, all of you know, 8.7 billion tons of plastic waste is produced between 50 and 21, and only 11% is recycled actually. And if you look at this Nature article, it only predicts that the large number of plastic usage will only go up actually. For example, high density polyethylene actually will actually go up from 140 to 381. So even though we are aware of the problems, we are kind of stuck with the materials that we have. And therefore, we need to continuously evolve and find mechanisms of solving these problems as we move ahead. So we are delighted that the DBT scheme that the interim union budget announced this scheme actually called Biomanufacturing and Biofoundry. And this is again being led by Department of Biotechnology's interventions. And we've been talking about this, calling it as a regenerative bioeconomy actually. So various thematic sectors have been identified, and you can see chemical industry, which is about produces 70,000 molecules. Oil to chemical industry will undergo transitions. Functional foods and smart proteins is a more predictable way to get food systems. Precision biotherapeutics, obviously, one of the problems in areas that will dramatically change is the gene and cell therapy and various other mRNA therapies. And various therapies that can be actually resolving your problems rather than just managing them. The climate resilient agriculture, carbon capture, can we carbon capture first directly at the industrial sectors and then from the ecological niches? and the futuristic marine and space research actually. To be able to do all of these activities, we need to enable public-private partnerships, at the same time international cooperation. We also plan to set up various hubs called biomanufacturing hubs and bioAI hubs, along with skilling and regulatory systems actually. And together, this program in fact can drive the next 25 years of our country's progress. Of course, you would require a very thematic interventions in each of these areas because many of these will work in different ways. And I think that's where our department's focus is right now on doing this actually. So we have various strategy of implementations, and they're largely going to be in three paradigms: discovery and integrated research networks, bridging the gaps, and setting up what we call Bulankur Bioenabler hubs actually. And you will hear from this from department's website very soon how we are going to implement these projects and programs. Of course, you can see there are lots of excitement of Indian biotechnological progress across the world. And this is a news article that has come in Netherlands after my recent visit actually, where it says biotechnology in India, new rules and new opportunities. Even along with National Science Foundation, DBT is now aligned to start a collaborative research opportunity. In fact, I think it was announced yesterday. So all of you are encouraged to apply for collaborative proposals under Indo-US programs of NSF and DBT. I finally transit to workforce transition that is so critical for this country's progress actually. And I think this is being discussed everywhere, but I was also inspired by this editorial article that appeared in Nature, which says that the PhD training is no longer fit for the purpose, it needs reforms now. And what we really look at, science from a perspective now, PhD candidates are inadequately prepared for cross-disciplinary work and large teams characterizing cutting-edge science today. If you ask yourself, can I produce the highest amount of, can my thesis be a Cell or Nature or a Science paper actually, or even solve today's problems? And you will realize that you really need to do much more actually. However, the focus of the dissertation is still old classical evaluation of a single person's thesis and advancing knowledge of it. So how do we really change for it? So what Department of Biotechnology has done, along with all the BRIC institutions, we have kind of formulated a program, what we call I3C BRIC RCB PhD program of biosciences. Now the whole idea here is to ideate, immerse, innovate and collaborate in this unique PhD program, where we're going to come up with tremendously interesting thesis ideas and also ways of people to interact with social relevance actually. So why are we think that this is very, very important actually? And if you really look at, there are four facets of learning in human life actually. One is, it's defined as Shastra, Tantra, Vidya and Kala. And if you really follow all these four practices, you can in fact convert Vidya into Kala. You can really use your knowledge to make useful stuff actually, and what is called skill and effective performance. And I think our PhD programs in fact end at Vidya, where we have deep knowledge and reasoning, and then we are asked to find, what do I do next? Where should I go? What should be my future actually? And I think this is where the transition has to be far more smoother, such that the effective performance and skill can be done in much better way. So therefore we call it time to retrospect and why pursue PhD. And I think what we are trying to talk to students and tell them that PhD is not just a training ground any longer actually for a challenging and rewarding career. In fact, you can treat this as your first job actually. I think we need to change culturally. Rather than saying I'm there to learn, you should say I'm there to start producing things actually. And therefore, through the regular and rigorous relevant research, you can start influencing social reforms, which are very critical component of it activity. And I give you an example, for example. If you want to talk about, microbe can provide nitrogen to the plant without any cost to an eco-friendly way, actually. I mean, in India, the urea subsidy is one of the biggest challenge. 10,000 crores of urea subsidy is given just to provide nitrogen. Can't we augment symbiosis for sustainable agriculture, actually? So can't we develop projects around these? And you can see this is an example where NIPGR, ILS, RCB, IBSD, and various PIs have been mapped. And now PhD students can, in fact, rather than working on an independent project, they will feel like working on this larger program, which together can, in fact, become a real mandate for the solving country's important solutions and problems. And these ways, students can themselves align to be able to solve bigger mission programs actually and activities, and therefore will have a deterministic solutions for what they should do actually. And these integrated programs can therefore become a very important solution finders for people to look at. At the same time, what we're doing is we're giving them what we call immersion program for doctoral students actually. So the idea is to leave the confinements of lab and immerse in the real life challenges. So we're going to expose all students for 3 months in the field studies actually. There'll be a special fellowship given, so that they will go out to the fields and by themselves experiences the challenges and problems and get motivated and derive questions from there that can be solved in the lab settings, such that together in terms of collaborative model can in fact become a valuable resource actually. I think as you must have realized that this is what will involve many of us coming together and therefore requires people to collaborate in a way that we have not done in the past, I think I'll stop here, but leave you with the kind of thoughts and ideas that how DBT has been doing well and is continue to do in futuristic role models such that it makes difference to the society. And clearly, science and innovation will be the winner for the future of the country. I'll stop here and thank you very much for giving me a time and opportunity. Thank you again, Professor Rao and Professor Prakash for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale. Do you have time for a couple of questions from students?
Sure, I'll be happy to.
2 questions from students and we wind up this session in the interest of time. Opportunity for students to ask a question to Secretary DBT. Anybody? Anything? This is for your future. Please.
I'm sorry, I'm still a student too. So yeah, I'm student too. I'm just to introduce myself, sir. I'm Dr. Nageshwar Reddy. I'm the chairman of AAG Hospitals in Hyderabad. My question to you is regarding, because as a hospital, doctors in hospitals, we keep on writing for grants, and we find that there's a lot of confusion between what happens with Department of Biotechnology and ICMR, because both of them are the granting agents, and we are not sure where the grant should go, and there's a lot of overlap between those. So do these departments talk to each other and then decide how say grant should be given and what areas of research, because otherwise there will be a lot of overlap between both?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think what I and ICMR DG, we have been talking for several time, and in fact our major impetus and focus is how to integrate our activities and programs. And in fact the program that we talked about, tuberculosis genome sequencing, is a joint program between DBT and ICMR. Similarly are the vaccine research activities and all. I think what the way we look at it is Department of Biotechnology has created a lot of ecosystem in terms of clinical research as well. What we want to do is somebody needs to do it from end to end. So for example, cell and gene therapy actually programs. Now, you know, there is a clinical trial component and there is a component that requires innovation. Now, largely, the innovation gets funded through Department of Biotechnology, and the clinical trial settings and handholding at the next level should happen through the Health Ministry, which is the ICMR actually. So I think we are trying to align ourselves, but there is a little bit of always a challenge because people not very easy to give up their own resources to the next people in the aspect of it. So we are ourselves, DBT and ICMR, saying, why can't we co-fund many projects and programs actually together? And I think that will solve and bring in confidence in the people to be able to take up to the next level. Hopefully we'll be able to make difference in next year. I think the last year was because of the new financial practices, there was a lot of messiness around in the country. I think you will see much more different funding agencies in the next 1 year to come. Hopefully that addresses your question actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. One last question. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'm actually Dr. Dham Singh from CSIS Palampur. Very nice, actually, your talk with a lot of innovation and then hope for the future. So my question is, when we talk about the translation work, so at many front actually we want to motivate our younger generation. So at the DBT front, whether we have something rewards and award for the PhD students, especially if even we exclude faculty, some rewards for them actually who particularly work into the translation area, because that is very challenging and not many times actually we are successful in translation work. But still that outcome leads to the some of the conclusion that has a really do with the future. So that's what.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you, and I think people trivialize the translation component of how difficult it is to do actually, and I think that's where we are formulating new key indicators of what the successes mean, even for faculties, not just for students as well actually. And I think we should try and reward people who take up high-risk projects and programs, then only we can see, otherwise we'll continue to have incremental science going on everywhere actually. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that's where I think our major focus is, and that's where this Biotechnology Research Innovation Council will come up with completely new parameters of successes actually, including, it's not necessary to do papers only, you can actually do many other things as well. Hopefully it will become a paradigm for the future success stories. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale. In the interest of time, we will conclude here with a big applaud to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar to all of you.
It's up to you now. If you have time, please stay on. Otherwise, you are up to your own schedule. Thank you. Now, we will move on to the last lecture in this session. I would welcome Dr. D. Nageshwar Reddy Garu, very accomplished clinician in the country and abroad now. He is the only endoscopist in the world who received 5 ASGE Crystal Awards, American Society of Gastrointestinal Endoscopy Crystal Awards. Let us thank him for sparing his time here to give the lecture. He has a string of awards and honors. I am sure he probably wouldn't want me to read out the entire list, but I have to read that he is a Padma Shri awardee, he is a Padma Bhushan awardee, and he is a fellow of National Academy of Medical Sciences, Delhi, American Society Gastrointestinal Endoscopy 2009 awardee, and he is an inventor of Nagi stent. Thank you very much, Dr. Reddy Garu, for your sparing quality time here and addressing all of us, especially our students. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. At the outset, I'd like to thank Professor Rao and Professor Prakash for this kind invitation. In fact, for me, this 1 hour I spent here has been very enlightening. Listening to the brilliant lecture that Professor Rao gave and the nice lecture of our DBT secretary, I think for the international speakers, this is an indication of how India is progressing in science, and hopefully we'll catch up with those so-called rich countries, at least in science, may not be an economy, at least in science. Now, I'm going to talk on something which is becoming very, very important in life now regarding the artificial intelligence in healthcare. So the question was, is artificial intelligence going to be a reality? The answer is yes, it is a reality. We are already using it, and let me show you some examples. But what is more interesting and what I'm going to take you through is the exciting journey that we're going through in the last few years in artificial intelligence in healthcare, which is dramatically modifying the way how we see patients and how we are treating them. Now let me start with a disclaimer that I'm not an AI expert. I've just used all the models that are available, that I have not myself been involved in developing algorithms and so on. So, but this is just a 30,000 view of what is happening in this area. Now, when we see patients as doctors, the components that are involved are clinical. We examine the patient, we investigate, we make a treatment, we then treat the patient, we follow up. This is all we do as doctors. Some of us do a little research, some of us train also students. This is a conventional medicine. But this conventional medicine is going to be completely changed by what is happening in the field of artificial intelligence. It all started actually in medicine too in 1950, where artificial intelligence was a very simple thing. Even somebody like me could understand it at that point of time. Putting little data inside and seeing what comes out, solving a few complex types of data. But then it evolved. In 1990s, what really affected medicine was machine learning, where you could put multiple data and the machine started learning and interpreting. So for example, you could put a type of cancer, different images, and machine can say, okay, this is cancer. And then finally, in 2010, the deep learning came, which actually is CNN, convoluted networks, where it occurs in separate parameters. Again, I don't want to go into the basics because you're very educated on this. So you give multiple data, the machine learns, integrates, and comes out with a special output. So this deep learning is what made the difference. And what happens now is the deep learning is center of all artificial intelligence in health. But you can see that around the periphery something very important is happening. The natural language generation, the large language modules, LLM, the so-called chat GPTs are completely changing how again doctors are going to see patients and are seeing right now. So what I did was I went into chat GPT and asked this question, because when Dr. Prakash gave me this topic, I said, okay, let me take the help of this to make it easier. And it said, these are the key areas where artificial intelligence is going to make an impact in health sciences. It is in diagnostic, we already are using it, X-rays and so on. It's going to be in drug discovery and developments, phenomenal use in drug discovery and developments. It's going to be in personalized medicine, I'll come to that a little later. It also gives us predictive analysis, and I think Professor Rao already gave a beautiful talk on how predictions can occur in nature and how we can differ, and biologically can differ, and as human beings we do not know the differences. Artificial intelligence can pick up the differences. Similarly, it's going to be used in treatment with robotics, and most important in future is going to be wearable health monitoring devices. Believe me, in 5 years time, every one of you, single one of you sitting in this hall will be wearing a wearable device monitoring your health. Already, I don't know how many are using Apple watches. You already have a big AI in that, which is going to tell your heart rate, your rhythm, and so on. Soon we are going to have watches, and they're already available, which will tell your blood sugar levels, your BP levels. It will even look at your mood level. Are you depressed? Are you serious? Are you excited? Are you feeling sleepy because of the lecture, and so on. So this is all going to come in, and this is every single person in this hall is going to wear a wearable device in 5 years' time. So let's look at AI in healthcare as such. It's actually, the importance is how much input you give, data, that's going to make a difference. And most of the current research is focused on radiology imaging, it's focused on disease diagnosis, and increasingly with corona, telehealth and artificial intelligence are becoming very important to us. So the important thing is big data. We require a lot of data, and that's why the new gold now is data. We have requests every day from hospitals all over the world, from pharmaceuticals companies all over the world, asking us, can you collaborate with us for data? We want, say, 10,000 cases of tuberculosis of the intestine. Can you give us data? And they're ready to pay anything for that. Data is the real gold, because the data you feed in, the right data, how much comes out is related to this. So this is very important. And I think this is going to be the future. So my colleagues' worry is artificial intelligence going to actually replace them. No, artificial intelligence is not going to replace them, but artificial intelligence, if you don't know artificial intelligence, you will be replaced by somebody who knows artificial intelligence. Many of my students, younger colleagues are so good at AI now, I'm sometimes a little worried that in future they'll do a better job than me in diagnosis and treating patients. So therefore, it's not going to replace, but definitely those who have better knowledge are going to become better doctors. This is very important. This is a very interesting book that I'll request all the PGs to get in Amazon and read. study. It's by Eric Topol, one of the most influential people in artificial intelligence and health today. And this book called Deep Medicine tells you how artificial intelligence is going to actually make us all back human again. As doctors, we become very mechanical, mechanized. We see patients as just instruments, but artificial is going to change it, because then we have more time to react with the patients. So this is digitization, democratization, and deep learning, very important. Now, it is likely that it's going to translate into better health care. So let me just briefly give you an overview of what happens with artificial intelligence. There are 4 components, as you can see here. When you say AI, it doesn't mean just making diagnosis and so on. It means first health services management. So health services management, let me just tell you what are the components in this that we use today. For example, in our hospital, every day 3,000 patients come. And each patient goes to 67 spots in the hospital. We calculated that. That is, sees the doctor, sees the blood test, goes to the X-ray department, 67 spots per day. Now with artificial intelligence, we can map out what we call the noodle map, saying how the patients are traveling. And we know that when we planned this hospital, we didn't have this knowledge. The departments, the X-ray department is very far off, the chemistry department is far off. So now we know how to map them together so that the 67 steps, the noodle becomes straight, that he can just go to one point and get all this thing done. So for operational efficiency, we are already using AI now. In fact, we have in the hospital a department of artificial intelligence and digital technologies, the CTO for that, who sits and only does this. He's actually navigating, seeing how the patients are. Similarly, we have a lot of other things like supply chain optimization, and one of the biggest problems running hospitals now is the fraud that occurs. What do you mean by fraud? So we have so many drugs coming in, so many drugs going out. So in just one day, our pharmacies can make huge amount of money just replacing bad drugs with good drugs or sending these drugs out. So all this now has to be tagged, and artificial intelligence is the only way we can do it. So for operational benefit, it's very important. Then, of course, a lot of administrative decisions are made. I'm sure Professor Rao also would be using this for the university, doing a lot of administrative, because again, tagging everybody is doing. And most important, by using initially when we put up this, what happens is doctors are cheap, but computer scientists are costly. Their salary is almost double the doctor's salary. So when we put up this department of artificial intelligence using a CTO, his salary was double my salary. So we're thinking, is it worth it? But then when we actually followed up, we now realize that it is much cheaper to have him, because he saved us huge crores of rupees because of this administrative efficiency using artificial intelligence. So people don't realize this, but in medical administration, artificial intelligence is going to play very. Now come to predictive medicine. This is again more medical and is going to be very important. Example, we can do early detection of diseases very easily now by following a certain pattern of diseases. In fact, epidemic outbreaks can be predicted. Hospital readmission rates. So if a patient comes to me with, say, an ulcer in the stomach, I treat him, I can now predict which patient is likely to come back for treatment, which patient need not come back, and so on. So it saves a lot of, it's a very efficient method of how we are going to do. So hospital protocols can be made on that. And of course, in addition to this, we can also have a lot of other things, and important of this, I think again Dr. Rao touched on it, on genomic medicine and genetic prediction. Every one of us has the same genes, but every one of us has a different response to environment, and the ultimate phenome that comes out is this response. And as human beings, we cannot predict why one person exposed to coronavirus develops such a severe disease, why one person doesn't develop severe disease. We cannot predict. But now with artificial intelligence, using this genomic data, using environment data, we are now able to predict very easily. In fact, recently we published a study where just based, now we can say which patient with coronavirus is going to become serious, which patient is not going to become serious, which patient has to be admitted in ICU, which patient can be left alone. this can be predicted now. It's, I think, major advance that's occurred because of this. And of course, then we come to the data and diagnostics. You can see that we can now continuously monitor the data. For example, now my heart rate is being continuously monitored. When I go back to the hospital, last 1 hour what was my heart rate. We are now made diagnosis of cardiac arrhythmias, irregular heart rates in many patients who are willing to wear this wearable device. It gives a warning, your heart rate is going on, and I just saw yesterday one patient who developing abnormal heart rate every few days. Then I said, whenever you develop an abnormal heart rate, just tell us what you are doing, He didn't want to tell me what he was doing, but I had an AI app which was telling me what he was eating, what he was drinking. Every time he got a arrhythmia, he was actually having some wine. Of course, coffee can do it, wine can do it, other things. He was having wine. And I know what's causing arrhythmia. I told him stop it, he stopped it, and then he's going to be all right. So you see a combination of, in a variable device, combining all these things, artificial intelligence. This cannot be solved by just following, because most of the time when we take patient's history, we don't get a very accurate history. Patients don't always tell us this. So of course this is going to be something. And then of course clinical decision making. This is the area where doctors were worried. Why should I use a machine to make a clinical decision when I am doctor, I have been trained to do this and that. But again, in difficult cases making it. For example, we can see now, so if I see a patient with a certain disease and I'm not sure, so I can now go into ChatGPT and say, tell me about this, it'll tell everything. In fact, now there's a MedPalm 3. So ChatGPT was made by Microsoft. Google came up with what's called the MedPalm. MedPalm 2 is now available. There was an examination that MedPalm 2 took along with the US graduates, and it got a score of 87%, much higher than most of the doctors writing this exam. So you see, its devices are becoming much more sophisticated now. So look at this, it's very interesting. One of the areas where AI is superior to doctors, definite evidence, is a Nature paper, shows in skin cancers. Very, very early skin cancers. You may have some small lesion you can't make out, but this was a study which looked at 25 top dermatologists in US versus an AI computer looking at it, and AI was more accurate. Again, about a week back, I saw a patient who came with some peculiar lesion in the skin. We have a dermatologist. The dermatologist also couldn't diagnose. I couldn't diagnose. But in the ChatGPT, you have now a M model where you can actually take a picture of this and ask the ChatGPT, what is this? So ChatGPT told me that this was amyloidosis of the skin. Amyloidosis of the skin is a very rare disorder. I haven't seen it. My dermatologist of 40 years practice saw one 30 years back. We said it can't be, impossible, it doesn't look. So we took a biopsy and sent it to a pathologist, and the pathologist said it's amyloidosis of the skin. So what I predict is diagnostic dermatology will go out of doctors and no longer needed. You just require to have this app and your iPhone or whatever Android phone you're using, and then take a picture, it will give you the diagnosis. It also will tell you what drugs to take, how long to take, and repeatedly take pictures, it will tell you whether you're responding well or not. So diagnostic dermatology is out now because of this. So it's good. My wife is a dermatologist and she's quite angry with this now. I'm a gastroenterologist, so my job is to do endoscopes, put in scope, see inside, and it took me 30-40 years of training to reach where I am now, to identify very early lesions, polyps and so on. But with artificial intelligence, you just require 1 year of training and you can reach to 40 years of what I have seen in the same time. So our my postgraduates are very lucky because they can reach the same expertise that I have. It took 40 years to reach with just 1 year using artificial intelligence. And this is examples, for example, this is a polyp in the colon which we can detect much easier with artificial intelligence because you can miss them sometimes colonoscopically. And the one bottom is, I see it, again took 40 years for me to say this is likely to become malignant in future. But AI is telling me immediately it's going to become malignant. So it can not only detect these early cancers but predict what's happening. And this is again, see, AI is magnifying it 500 times and is telling me with 98% probability that this is an adenoma, not a cancer. So don't worry. It took me 40 years to reach this conclusion, and AI is doing it in a few minutes. So this is what is going to transform medicine now. And in fact, in United States, the biggest problem in healthcare now is that they have colonic polyps which turn malignant. So everybody after the age of 50 years has to go and get a colonoscopy done to detect these polyps, which can be removed through colonoscope to prevent cancer. And this is one of the biggest industry in healthcare there. And you can see that without AI, there was a significant miss rate. So every colonoscope in the United States has got an AI fixed in it now. Every colonoscope in the United States. So using this artificial, when you're doing colonoscopy, it's just human, not human eye, but the AI is telling you're missing a small polyp on this side. This polyp is likely to become cancer. It's become part of their, it's now, FDI also says it's okay, you do this because it's become part of the system. And of course, the other interesting development that's coming is we now have in our, of course, many hospitals in India have this capsule endoscope. So you just swallow a small capsule. That capsule has got a camera, receptor, everything. So as it goes to the intestines, it gives you 60,000 pictures. Of 8 hours it takes going in the 60,000 pictures. Now what we were doing very unwisely was sitting in front of a desk hours together looking at these pictures to say if some lesion is there or not. Now no more required. There's an artificial intelligence incorporated into this capsule. So you just take the capsule, as soon as the patient 6 hours is over, all these pictures come out, and the capsule artificial intelligence tells us, oh, you have a small lesion there, likely to be cancer, follow carefully because in 5 years time it will turn out to be cancer. That is the degree of advancement that has occurred in this field now. Again, I said I'm an endoscopist, practice endoscopy. It's not just in this identifying the lesion, but the whole practice of scheduling patients, preparing patients, diagnosis, treatment. So when I just say to AI now, and this is again being practiced in many hospitals, at least in US, some in India also now. So a patient comes in, I'll say, okay, this patient is for colonoscopy, that's all, and leave it there. In our EMR system, electronic medical record system, this is integrated now. So as when I do the colonoscopy, the report comes automatically, polyp there. I remove the polyp, everything goes, polyp, whether it's cancerous, non-cancerous, everything again recorded by AI. And the AI will tell the patient on the cell phone, you come back for checkup after 3 months because this is an early cancer lesion, we require checkup. And it tells the patient after 3 months, it has a knob on it, so you get a notice on the cell phone saying, prepare yourself this way, fasting, take this and go to the hospital and meet. So this whole thing is now completely controlled by AI. So it becomes very easy. And one of the most important areas which there's maturity in terms of AI helping doctors is in radiology. For example, pancreatic cancers, we miss many times even by seeing the CT scan, but AI can pick up much earlier than what we are seeing it in the eyes. So that's because of the data that's filled. Similarly, X-ray. Look at this. This is a Stanford study where they're looking at early pneumonias, especially with the COVID now this becomes important. Human eye was missing it, but AI was picking up. And another very interesting thing that's happening in AI is predictive value of AI. My friend in Mayo Clinic, Dr. Patrick, does this study where he's a hepatologist, a person who deals with liver diseases. One of his friends developed an ECG AI software, and they went into the community and they've started doing ECGs for heart. But this machine was giving out outputs saying that this patient has a liver problem, this patient has an alcoholic liver problem, this patient has a liver cancer and so on. With ECG, they were shocked. And they went back and saw the predictive value of this system was 99%. So for looking at liver disease, you don't require doing now ultrasound, all this sophisticated. The ECG is telling you everything. And same thing with retina. I think we have Dr. Shivaji from LVPS. Retina. When you look into the retina, you go to the ophthalmic doctor that look into retina. Now retina, you say that you have macular degeneration, your eyesight is going to follow. But it's saying now because of AI that this patient has Parkinsonism. This patient is likely to develop heart attack in next 1 year. This is retina. All this is done by AI. And I think this is gone. But this is called unexplainable AI. The software developers, the AI people, the doctors were not able to explain why it's doing. So there's a large quantity in medicine of what is called unexplainable AI. This is the next component of research. It gives you information, it gives you diagnosis, but it doesn't explain the algorithm or pathway how it made a diagnosis. Again, very interesting. So I think artificial intelligence will play a huge role in what you are doing. You see, doctors are going to be totally different of how we are going to treat these patients, and I think this is something which was a lot of patients are afraid to come to hospital. We are sometimes afraid to see a lot of it. So telemedicine is the area where integrating with AI is making a lot of difference. And I told you about this tele-monitoring, tele-mentoring, tele-treatment is going to be in next 5 years the major method of how we are treating patients. Patients don't have to come to the hospital. For blood sugar, diabetics for example, I don't know why every month they come to the hospital, get blood sugar done, diabetes, adjust the dose a little. You don't have to do that at all. It's completely now telemonitoring. You have continuous patches called continuous glucose monitoring, CGM. You put the patch, it goes to the cloud, and every second the diabetologist can see what's happening. Now, doctors don't have time to every second see it. So what it does is, end of the week, it gives you a summary AI that this is the instances where this patient had this large glucose surge happening. We used to say, okay, then tell the patient, this surge is there, did you eat anything at that time? Yes, stop doing this. But now you don't even have to do this. Now, the AI is actually monitoring what you're eating. So when you're eating, we ask the patients to take a picture of what they're eating. The AI is calculating the calories just from the picture. So the AI is saying, okay, that day you ate 1000 calories and therefore your sugar shot up. Don't do that. Now it's gone beyond. Now AI now is integrating itself, saying that that day you ate 1000 calories, just take one shot of insulin 5 units whenever you take a similar diet. You can now predict, okay, give a picture and the AI will tell you, okay, eat this but take little extra insulin injection. So all this is becoming actually right now in practice. Can you imagine in next 5 years it's going to become a common practice, everybody is going to use it. So smartphone based AI I think is going to be friends. The phone that we are going to carry is going to become your personal doctor. It is not only going to, not just diabetes for example, but everything else. It's going to now monitor everything for you. In fact, we are doing a work now with IIT Hyderabad here, where we have sensors which can be placed in the, say, in the room. And then I can actually sense everything. I can tell Professor Prakash's blood sugar or blood pressure, whether he's anxious that I'm going too long in the lecture, I should cut down, whether I should stop. All that can be monitored with these sensors. I think to be huge, and this is real, and already we're using this. Because of the various things. Work on that, this is the area we should work, because it's going to revolutionize medicine. And of course, big data analysis is very, very important. The data in this. How much data you feed in, how much accuracy you get. That's the reason why the companies, hospitals, everything is after, everybody is after this data now, big data. And you can see how much it's going to cost in US alone. Recently, we also started using AI in actually training, and this is an AI-based simulator that we developed with Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, where you know what happens traditionally is doctors, I have a student, I'll ask him to do endoscopy on patient, I'm watching and telling him do this, do that. But a patient of course suffers a little. So now you don't have to do that. You have these AI machines where he's doing the endoscopy. He's not a doctor, he's an engineer in the Indian Institute of Science, but you can see that he of course supported the research by scientists there at Stanford, putting small chips in the brain. And this chip controls variety of brain activities. Like for example, this is now used mainly for people with paralysis. Paralysis, you can't move your arm, but you put the chip there, and this chip controls your brain movement, sends electrical activity, so you can move your arms and move your legs. The first patient, FDA approved patient, has already been treated with this, so that a paralyzed patient is able to walk. This again is not immediate, and there is one patient only, but again the future. Just imagine a small chip in the brain, and this chip controls everything that you do, including a mental activity or productivity. Just imagine that if you can get all the wisdom and knowledge of Professor Rao into a chip and put it into the students, you no longer are students, you are all Professor Raos. This is something that again in reality it's happening very rapidly. In animals it has already been demonstrated, in chimpanzees it is demonstrated, and you have huge industry backing this type of research coming up. Something which doctors and machines differ, and that is something I've been a strong promoter of this factor called empathy. Doctors have empathy, machines don't have empathy. This is the big difference. So why patients come to us, why patients go to next doctor, not this doctor? The difference is empathy. Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is capability of a doctor to put himself into the person, other person, relatives person, and think what he's thinking. A machine cannot do that. I thought so till recently, till this paper in JAMA was published, where patients were asked to ring back to talk to the doctors to see how much empathy and they had. And very surprisingly, chat box showed more empathy to the patient than the doctors. So this is something again we have to be very careful about. Doctors were superior because of this, and now AI is becoming also very good at this empathy. So of course, this is just again a bird's eye view of what AI is doing for population health, individual health, and so on. The importance of AI is going to be what we call now the 4 P's of medicine: preventive, predictive, precision, and of course participatory. So everybody must participate in this. So this is going to be the 4 P's, and this precision medicine has already come in. We did a recent study which we are publishing in New England Journal from a hospital, where all the patients coming into the hospital taking more than 4 medications, we took their blood samples, took the genomic pathway of these medicines, various interactions they're having, and so on. We used artificial intelligence to make a map of how each is reacting to the medicine. Again, Professor Rao told this beautifully, and how variations, biological variations are there. They are there, but we couldn't make out till now. Using this, we found that in 40% of the patients, the medicine dosages, the type of medicine is changed. 40%. Just imagine what doctors are doing now, blindly giving. We read in the pharmacology textbooks, give 1 tablet a day before food, or 1 tablet twice a day, this particular tablet. Acid tablet, give 1 tablet before food once a day. But we found that in 40% of the patients, it was totally different. We had to, some patients required only 1 tablet once in 2 days. Some patients required 2 tablets a day based upon their biological reaction to the tablet. We changed the prescriptions come. And this is the precision medicine that's going to come in future. Every patient going to the hospital is going, you don't just give a drug to them. We are going to check up whether the drug suits you, how much drug has to be given. AI is going to be used to modify that, and then finally a prescription will come. So that's already happening. Of course, there are challenges, and there is challenges of having accurate data. That's very important. If you feed the wrong data, you naturally get a wrong answer. So data accuracy is very important. There's ethics, regulatory agencies, and so on, which are going to become very, ethical issue is becoming very, very important. And this is something that again I want to emphasize, that as we move forward, as again we heard from the DBT secretary, regulatory agencies are going to become very important because of ethics. And this is, I was recently invited to Singapore to be a part of the Singapore position statement for AI. See how they're thinking forward. They're already thinking AI is coming into health. Let's make position statement. Otherwise, it will be misused. It will be totally misused in a setting like our country, which is very large, which has very intelligent AI engineers, and doctors are willing to collaborate with them. The whole thing, unless regulatory agencies like a government comes up to make this regulation. And one of the important things is they said there should be equality, not equity. It should be affordable and accessible, because again, if you make it inaccessible to the common man, only some will benefit, and some benefit will go on like that, which will again create a lot of social problems. And of course, it should be validated by good clinical science. So what do we do now? If I want to test a medicine A to see whether it's effective, I just don't give the medicine A and see what happens to the patient. I give medicine A to one patient, a placebo to another patient and see what happens. If the drug is really acting, medicine A should cure the patient and the placebo should not cure. These are called randomized controlled trials, RCTs. Every medicine that's introduced in health has to undergo an RCT before the second. But AI, nobody has thought of that. Very important that government should say that before an AI tool is introduced, it has to undergo a randomized controlled trial. This is a regulation that the government has to get in. Otherwise, we now have, for example, every day I get 10 requests from small AI companies saying, I made this AI app, can you use it in the hospital and tell us? But if you start doing this, there will be a lot of fraud, a lot of confusion and so on. Genuinity will go up. So government has to come in and make RCT compulsory before AI becomes useful. So this is the regulatory authority now in Singapore. They have made a very good, and other thing is legal. So this happened in US now. A polyp was missed. And the patient went to consumer court saying polyp is missed. The doctor said, I don't know, I used artificial intelligence. You blame the artificial intelligence. The judge is confused now. Should he blame the doctor? Should he blame the artificial intelligence? Now who becomes liable? So this issue has to be very, very clearly made out, and there is some regulations now coming that it is not AI, but the person who is using AI who is liable for legality. So all these issues have to be solved out, because otherwise what happens is AI, unless we have, if it's successfully implemented, you must have good governance, privacy, evidence of benefit, transparency. We must have, this is very, very important. So just to summarize, the AI is definitely going to come in a big way. It is going to become huge in next 5 years. The way we practice medicine is going to dramatically change. There are many, of course, pros, better decisions, then integration of many pros, but also cons. Look at cons. You have concerns regarding privacy, capital investments are going to be high. Every AI device has to be under regulatory, otherwise it will get into problem. And of course, AI industry is going, because I think there is, in India especially, this is very important, large amount of data there. No other country in the world has so much data, say, on tuberculosis than India. If it's properly utilized, it's going to dramatically change a major disease, how we are going to treat it. Same thing with diabetes. So, and look at the use AI can be done. Coronavirus, you know what happened when coronavirus came from Wuhan and spread to other, people are trying to trace out how it happened, and AI helped here. AI, not directly medicine, but AI was used in the airline industry to see what was the pattern of people going out of Wuhan at that point of time. And they found that a large number of people are going to Milan. And from Milan, they traced out where were they going. They were going to United States, Europe. So the whole pathway is packed. Now it happened. The spread of the virus, the incubation period of the virus, morbidity, mortality, all were mapped out with AI. So this is a major tool that's going to help us in pandemics like this, So I think the implications are large. And of course, everything in the world is driven by economy, and AI is going to be driven by economy. It's a huge economy involved, trillions and trillions of dollars. And again, as the Secretary of Deputy showed, in future it is going to become a major chunk of economy. That's the reason why US is driving it so much. That's the reason why AI is so advanced in China, one of the most advanced countries in AI they're using. So 17th century was for steam power, 19th century for mass production, 20th century for computing, and I think the 21st century is going to be the century of artificial intelligence. And we are very, very clear. Health industry I speak, but I think in every industry it is very clear. Because I think, as Darwin said, coming back to Professor Rao's lecture again, that is not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one with the most responsive change. And we have to be responsive to change. Scientists like you, doctors like me, all of us have to respond to this change. We can't brush off AI, or we can't overestimate it. We have to be responsible of how this change is taken into our life. And I think, just look at, if you don't adapt to change, look at what happened. In the United States, you know what happens? When there's a lot of, the traffic regulation is very, very well done. It will tell you don't go on NH90 because a lot of traffic is there, you can't go through, change your route. All this used to be done by a pilot and helicopter there. Now it's taken over totally by drones. Drones are doing it. You don't see helicopters and not flying over the highway. Drones are doing it. So in just 10 years time, both the cameraman and the pilot both lost their jobs. So for all of us, you're a scientist or you're an administrator or a doctor, unless we upgrade ourselves in AI, we are going to lose our jobs. We're going to change. I think for the first time in the history of mankind, we as humans have the ability now, using artificial intelligence, to modify nature, to modify ourselves. Whether we do it for our benefit or for our destruction depends on entirely how we do it. But whatever way, I think we are in very, very exciting times. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir. It was very enlightening. Somewhat scary in some areas. Because this is entirely data-driven process.
Yes.
And there are many systems where data is noisy and erroneous.
Yes.
I wonder if there are some healthcare processes which is extremely sensitive to data errors.
Yes, yes.
There we will run into difficulties. If you can enlighten on that.
So it's absolutely right, sir, because it's data driven and depends upon the quality of data we're feeding. For example, you can make a wrong diagnosis of cancer if your data input is wrong. So how do I make a diagnosis of cancer in the intestine? I look at the pattern of pits in the intestine, the pattern of vascular blood flow in the intestine. Now if I get it wrong, I feed in say 1,000 bits of data which is different, I'll consistently get a wrong diagnosis and the patient is going to be scared of cancer, treated wrongly for cancer. So that's the reason why I believe that the time has now come for the government of India especially to have a strong regulatory agency. Unfortunately, our DBT secretary is not there, but we should emphasize that they should set up a regulatory agency which says that all these things should be completely regulated, so that in medical science, a small bit of wrong data would give rise to a massive disaster. This noise component is very important. We have to filter it, and that's why I think we have to go very carefully.
I think there are some questions, I'm sure.
Hi, I'm Lakshmipati from AppGenix. It's related to what Dr. Bijay Rao said, but in a system like India, where healthcare is not focused in a single place, we travel to different hospitals, we travel to different doctors. Now, RNS data, or for example, a cardiologist may not look at a stomach problem. How do you envisage that all of these are going to be integrated in the future to come?
Yeah, that's an important question. In India, unfortunately, one of the most unregulated and one of the most disorganized, if you call it industry, is the health industry. Doctors, in fact, don't look at other doctors' reports. The knowledge quality in different, for example, knowledge quality from a big hospital in Hyderabad will be totally different from knowledge quality of what happens in Karimnagar or Rohtak and so on. Huge variations are there. And we could not correct it all these years because we inherited this system from the British times. We are very confused. We don't know whether it's socialized medicine, private medicine, how patients should be treated. We don't have a unifying data for all. So all this we inherited, and it's very difficult to correct that. But now we have an opportunity when AI is starting, and next 5 years when AI is going to be the predominant way how healthcare functions. If we as a society and the government takes it up and regulates it and say that these are the regulations and this is how it should be integrated. For example, EMR, electronic medical records, or hospital information systems have to be there everywhere. Now many hospitals are getting into this. If AI is put into this in all the areas in uniform way, how a cardiologist sees a patient with certain cardiac disease in Hyderabad or in Rohtak will be same. So this opportunity to uniform, to integrate we have right now, and I think we should take advantage of this. That is a very good question.
Keep the questions sharp so that we don't lose time.
Hello sir, wonderful presentation. I wanted to ask your take on, because we have a lot of antibacterial resistance for the pathogens, as well as cancer relapse because of cancer stem cell modification, how this technology can be used when biology is also constantly evolving.
So the reason why we are going to use this technology is because biological uncertainty and evolution is there. Human brains can't take this uncertainty and evolution. So using AI, you have predictive models. We can predict A, B, C, D. So in a predictive model, we think something is going to happen. Any of these 4 things can happen. Now, why this particular patient has a cancer recurrence? We can now predict based upon 1, the genomic data, 2, the biomarkers the patient has, and 3, the immunological profile of the patient. What is his T cell activity, B cell? All these are integrated together and AI gives us the answer. So that's how it's going to be extremely useful.
Yeah, I have a question not related exactly to AI, but related to what you have talked. And this is a question related to ethics of clinical trial, for example, where you give placebo to some patients, particularly in case of critical diseases. How do you make patients ready for delivery of placebo instead of the correct medicine?
So that's also a very, very important question. Of course, not in the sphere of AI, but important because it keeps bothering us all the time. So if we have a patient who has, say, ulcerative colitis, which is a mild disease, I may be justified in saying I have made a new discovery drug which is going to cure it, but to prove that I have to give placebo. And say after 4 weeks, the patient doesn't respond to placebo, I can always give him the new drug. So this is called crossover trials, this is accepted. But if I have a patient in the intensive care unit whose life depends upon the treatment, and how to randomize it is going to be different. So in this group of people, when we do say clinical trials, we always use the standard of treatment. The standard of treatment is kept there. So when we mean a placebo, it means standard of treatment. Plus we add a new drug. So anyway this patient is getting the treatment, the new drug is making a difference or not, we know. So we have to clearly distinguish between critically ill patients who require to be randomized for trials and those who have mild disease who can undergo a crossover trial to get these medications.
Prakash Garu, how much time we have? We are late, right? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, sir.
So I think
Dr. Kalyankar from
this is the last question, and then we can interact with him during tea session.
Dr. Kalyankar from University of Hyderabad, sir. That's a wonderful talk. This is not regarding the AI, rather robotics. There was a wonderful article probably you must have gone through in the Nature. They're talking about the conventional surgery versus the robotic surgery. And also they were talking about the cost of the robotic surgery.
Question.
Can you please enlighten us on how good it will be in Indian context and how the
so robotic surgery is part of AI. Most of robotic surgery is AI driven. For example, we have in our hospital now 10 robots, different areas, cardiac surgery and so on. So from the experience that I have, I can tell them that at present, cost effectiveness of robots is not enough for us to invest in a big way into this human systems. The advantage of robot is what? It can consistently do a procedure for hours together what a human being cannot do because of fatigue involved with precision. That's the difference. So now the main use of robots, although we have many robots in orthopedics, cardiology, is for urology, for prostate surgery because we cannot go into that area with the hands, and for oncological surgery where precision for long periods is important. These are two main uses. But in general, a large scale investment into robot is not justified because we don't have randomized control trials to support its use in such a way.
So thank you, Dr. Reddy Garu. It's an enlightening and very rich presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We render our heartfelt gratitude to the stalwarts for gracing our event and edifying us. It was indeed a priceless experience to hear the pioneers in the field. Now we would request Professor Anand Kumar Kundapi and Professor JSS Prakash to join Professor B.J. Rao in the felicitation of Dr. Nageshwar Reddy. We would now request Professor Kondapi and Professor Prakash to felicitate Professor B.J. Rao.
Now we would like to call upon Dr. N. Prakash Prabhu onto the dais to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning all. Due to time constraint, I will make it very short. First and foremost, I would like to thank all our chief guests, Professor B.J. Rao, Dr. Rakesh Gogle, who joined online, Dr. Nageshwar Reddy, Dr. Sivaji, Dr. Martin Hegman, and Kansuki Kineka for their gracious presence and extending their wishes for this conference. Our special thanks goes to our speakers, Professor B.J. Rao for giving a larger perspective of science itself, standing at the triple point of physics, chemistry, and biology. And for Dr. Rajesh Gogle for enlightening us on DBT's innovations, on guiding and encouraging the innovations. And Dr. Nageshwar Reddy for a very informative and intriguing talk on AI in healthcare. I thank all our guests and invited speakers from various institutes across India and the globe. I thank our Dean, Professor Anand K. Kondapi, for his constant encouragement and support for this event. I also thank Professor JSS Prakash for organizing this wonderful event here. My sincere thanks goes to all our faculty members of Department of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics and School of Life Sciences, all the PG and PhD students, postdocs of our school for their support for this event. I thank all the participants for their participation in this conference. Our thanks to all our supporting staff and media. There is a saying, there is a couplet in Tamil. It says that Selvathul Selvam Savichelvam, Achalvam Selvathul Ellam Thalai. It's a couplet 4:11:11, written by Thiruvalluvar in Thirukural 300 BC, which means the richness of listening is the wealthest among all the wealth and the foremost wealth. This is our primary motto behind the conference. I thank one and all for driving us towards this motto to the reality and making this morning very pleasant and memorable. Thank you one and all. And now I request all of you to assemble near the entrance of School of Life Sciences for a photograph, followed by a cheap break. Due to time constraint, let us be back by 12:05, please. We have 15 minutes now.